Hi, welcome to Ms. Cooper's art class. Today I'm going to be showing you how to draw an Irish knot using a grid to make kind of a basket weave texture. I already started by gridding out my page because I didn't have grid paper and because I wanted the grid to be fairly large. On the left you can see the idea of what we're doing. I used a ruler and I used a pencil to take care of the grid, and I'm going to be using a pencil for the rest of the tutorial. You can always go over it with pen later. At the intersection of each set of grid lines, you should draw a small circle. It can be a different size compared to mine. This is just going to make the gaps in the weaving a different size. Once you have that completed, go ahead and draw a small circle in the middle of each box of your grid too. This will determine the size of your note. Now you'll notice there's a basket weave, so the next part is to figure out what direction the lines are going and see how they interact. Sometimes it's better to draw a path through first, but that's not my strategy. My strategy is to just go for it and start drawing the different bands. So on one side, not in the middle, on one side of each dot, you're going to connect the two sides, like so, kind of touching one side of each dot. So don't draw a line through the middle. You'll notice I'm going down the row, since it'll repeat the same way, drawing on the same side. And I promise the video wasn't pausing, my hand was just really still during that moment. Let's take a look at this larger. So what you're doing is you're drawing it on this side, kind of like this, and I add a slight curve because I feel like that helps me see what I'm doing just a little bit better. Now to create that interlocking kind of mode, you have to think carefully about which side of the dots you're drawing on and how you curve your lines. Every pair of lines that are with each other should be facing inwards towards each other, kind of bending in. In contrast, every other set should really be kind of bending out instead, away from each other. From a different perspective, they could both be pointing in. So you can see how these interlock and how they have to bend their certain ways. So anytime you see a line, make sure the parallel line is doing the same thing. I just felt really thorough there, so I labeled that one as in. You can see this one goes in as well, and you can see how that interlocking starts to work. Sometimes an easy way to figure out which way to go is to kind of go around each circle in that kind of motion. I think that works well for me when I'm trying to figure out if the line should kind of bend in or out or which side it should be on. Fortunately, this follows a pretty solid pattern, so you can go down the line and make sure you do the same thing with each set of dots and make sure the lines face the same way. Alternatively, you could work in circles or little patches and work your way across, but being methodical, I think, is pretty helpful. So you can see now I'm making sure all my parallel lines are bending inwards towards each other. And what I'll do is I'll complete the pattern by making sure all my parallels bend inwards towards each other and that some other opposing ones bend out the other way. Now I've reached the edges. So what you do here is you think about which way the line is going to continue going. Right now that one has to tuck up under the last one, and you can see how that would repeat down the line. That's how you know which way to bend your lines when you hit the edge. And those circles at the edge there help you just remember to curve away from that spot. On the other side, they should curve the opposite way a lot of the time, especially if you do a braid that's only this big. When you get to the corners, you have to do a similar thing. Think about which way the line would bend. I like to draw a little line in the middle there, and sometimes that means erasing, but that's okay. That's why we started in pencil. And then you'll finish the other corners the same way. Sometimes it helps to have a reference image next to you while you're getting used to it and you're still figuring out those curves. I know it helps me to have a reference image too. You can make really any size grid for the most part as long as it's not too small, and you should be able to make a knot out of that too. Here's a bigger grid that I did. If you want to mess with the pattern a little bit or try something more advanced, what you can do is block off some areas, change the way that the knot twists. I would like to go in red pen and just kind of mark the lines that I think should be blocked off. They do have to be straight lines that are along the grid. They can't be going from those dots that are in the middles of the boxes. Um, there are ways to do it. I find that it is a little complicated when you're a beginner, though, and you have to count very carefully. So I would stick to the ones that are along the grid line. From there, look at any dots that you can connect with each other, and then do the same thing that you did before, where you make sure the inward lines face each other. In this case, it was easier for me to go around one of the circles and just start rotating all the lines. From there, you'll start to see the pattern emerge, and things should get a bit easier to do, especially along the edges, in my case, where things run along pretty uninterrupted by those red lines that I drew. I know the red's a little hard to see. It showed up a bit brighter when I was filming, so on camera it looks a little more dark red, but I'm hoping that that helps you see the areas that I blocked off. In this case, I found it easier to kind of work in patches, so I found a corner that was fairly empty, where I kind of knew what I was doing, and then I worked my way in towards those gaps. Especially if you're a beginner, I find that that's probably going to be the easiest way to do it. When you reach a red line, kind of like I did a couple seconds ago, you'll just make sure that you curve the line kind of like you've hit the outer edge of the grid. So notice I'm just going to curve away from that line. We're pretending that's the edge. From there, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to be very careful as I look around the outside, and I'll think about what direction the lines are going. That helped me here when I got to the corner, and I had a moment where I wasn't sure what I was doing for a second there, but then I thought about which direction the lines should go, erased my pencil line that I had there, kind of blocked it back out, and then it made more sense the way that line twisted. And then it was continuous with how they wrap around the bottom. Even though I've been enjoying doodling these a lot lately, it still helps me to work in pencil first. There's just a couple things that I'm still figuring out. You'll also notice in this drawing, there is a line that I forgot to draw. So if you can find that line, good for you. I hope you give this a try. Let me know how it goes in the comments, and I hope you enjoy. Thanks for watching.